What's up guys, Vress here, and today we're going to take a look at whether World of Warcraft is worth starting in 2017. Now believe it or not, there are people in 2017 who have never played the king of MMO RPGs. If you're watching this video, then you might just be one of them. So I'm going to answer a few questions that I often get from people who are considering joining World of Warcraft. So the first question I hear all the time, and that is World of Warcraft dying or is it dead? Now World of Warcraft is definitely not dead. People have been claiming that WoW is dying since the very first expansion for one reason or another. And while it's true that the game doesn't have the subscriber numbers that it enjoyed at its peak during Wrath of the Lich King, which was the game's second expansion, there are still millions of people playing World of Warcraft. It's still the most popular MMO RPG on the market today. One thing that's particularly impressive about this achievement is that it manages to maintain this status of most popular MMO whilst keeping a monthly subscription model in place. Who knows what kind of numbers we would see if the game went free to play. So just ignore the people who tell you that this game is dying. It's very much alive, and it would have to lose a huge number of people to get to the point where you couldn't find anyone to play with. And also, even if numbers do drop to that level, it's unlikely that Blizzard wouldn't have a plan in place. Personally, I'd like that plan to include World of Warcraft 2, but I think I'm probably just dreaming there. The second question that I hear a lot is it possible to catch up at this stage? A worry that new players often have is that they're going to be so far behind the people who started back in 2004 that they're never going to be able to catch up. Well, fortunately, it's not quite as simple as that. There are a lot of mechanics in place to help new players catch up, and leveling up your character will only take a fraction of the time it took those of us who have been playing since 2004. The game also holds your hand a lot more than it did back then, and makes it pretty easy for new players to get to grips with the game. It is true that when you hit maximum level, you're going to experience a skill gap between yourself and the players who have been around for years, and yes, you likely will get schooled, especially in PvP. However, there are countless guides available online that will teach you absolutely everything you need to know to get good at your class. My advice is be patient and enjoy the learning process. We were all new at one point, and to be honest, a lot of the magic in this game is found in experiencing things for the first time. If you keep at it, it won't be long before you're crushing it in dungeons and battlegrounds. Question number 3 is what is the community like? Specifically, how friendly is it towards new players? People are going to have their own opinions on this, but I would say that in general the World of Warcraft community is a great one. I've met some really good friends playing the game, and the majority of my interactions have been positive ones. Of course you're going to get your trolling and noob calling as you'd expect in any online game. However, a good number of the people you come across will be friendly and willing to help you. My advice is to find yourself an active guild that's happy to take on new players. You can find a guild by checking out the Warcraft forums or just asking in the in-game chat. Don't be afraid to ask a few questions before you accept a guild invite. You want to make sure that you pick the right guild for you, as this is going to have a big impact on your experience in the game. If they have questions for you, then this is a good sign. They obviously care about who joins their guild. And when you do find toxic players, the best thing to do is just stick them on the ignore list and move on. They really hate that. Question number 4, is the story enjoyable? This is a really subjective question, but I'll answer it the best I can. For me, the Warcraft storyline is the reason that I picked up WoW in the first place. I played Warcraft 1, 2 and 3 prior to picking up WoW, and I'd already fallen in love with the universe that Blizzard had created. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make as modern MMO players is that we seem to see the storyline as a means to an end. The rush to endgame content means that we don't take the time to enjoy the story as it unfolds, not bothering to read any of the quests and just mindlessly grinding through each area. Now I'm guilty of this myself, however I've leveled many characters over the years and have completed most of the quests multiple times at this point. As a new player, I would definitely suggest that you actually read some of the quests and allow yourself to become invested in the story. The Warcraft universe is jam-packed with exciting and interesting storytelling, and I believe it's well worth your time. The final question I get most often, and it usually comes from people who have played MMOs in the past, is how is the endgame content? Well, if you like a challenge, then I don't think you're going to be disappointed. This game is still the king of PvE, at least in my opinion. It has stacks of dungeons and raids that you can scale to the difficulty that suits your current skill and gear level. This kind of scaling has made endgame content so much more accessible to new players. This wasn't always the case, and raiding in particular used to be something that only a small number of players were able to experience. The barriers to entry were so high, and it required a major time investment. However, this has changed a lot in recent years, and even raids now feature easier difficulty settings for more casual players. If you love to invest in your characters and make them more powerful and able to take on greater and greater challenges, then WoW is the perfect place for you to do this. For those of you interested in PvP, you might be glad to know that gear no longer has as much of an impact on PvP in Legion. It still gives a small advantage, but not nearly to the extent that it used to. People who played the earlier expansions will remember the enormous difference between those who had gear and those who didn't. Personally, I kind of like this, as it always made me want to work hard to become that much more powerful. Though I'll admit it definitely didn't make PvP very accessible for new players. Online guides are your friend when it comes to PvP. There's a steep learning curve, but if you're willing to invest the time and energy into learning your class, then you can become competitive much faster than ever before. So that brings us to the end of the video. You've heard my top 5 questions for new players, and now I'm interested to hear yours in the comments down below. Also, if you liked the video, please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you next time.